I'd like to focus back on what our goals were here. Okay, so if we could go back to what we said our goals were for this lesson. So our goals were for students to make sense of the problems. I think we definitely observed the kids in different stages trying to make sense of what was going on. And I'm modeled with mathematics. I think the kids were just jumping to use an equation. So I think we have to kind of, and again, that was one of the things that we knew that we were probably going to observe is kids going right to that, like, I got to make an equation. You know, I got to come up with that. And kids, I believe, maybe I'm wrong, struggle with that when we get to proofs, because that's not the point of a proof. The point of a proof isn't to come up with an equation. So, and that was kind of when we were designing this lesson. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But I think when we were designing the lesson, we're like, okay, we're doing this now, but our goal is to get to proofs. So if we can somehow structure the lesson to do that, you know, that'll help us in the long run. And I'm going to talk about the structure of the lesson in a second. Constructing arguments and critiquing the reasoning, we saw that going on. And look for and make use of structure. We saw a lot of the kids trying to use the fact that everything's going to add up 20. We knew that, but that's a structure that they, quote unquote, think they understand. Right? And so part of our job as instructors and teachers and mentors and whatever you want to call us, but we're trying to guide them into using the structure the right way. Like how do you know when that structure is the correct structure that we're supposed to be using? You know what I'm saying? That kind of thing. So I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the design of our lesson really did lend itself for us to be able to observe those 4 standards, for sure. And I'm sure if we went back and named the other standards, we could all come up with specific examples of how we saw those in action as well.
Appropriate use of
Okay?
technology, right?
Oh, there you go. Appropriate use. Tools. Using the tools, okay? So, you know, we hit our rationale down here, and I do want to talk a little bit about how the specific elements of this lesson lent itself to what we were trying to go. And, you know, we were very, I think, we did a very good job of designing this lesson. In other words, we had our goals in mind from the very beginning. And I think many times we don't do that when we come up with a lesson that we're going to do in class. We find something good. Even in FAL, we go, ooh, here's a good FAL. We're going to use it. But what's the goal of using that? And how does that lesson address the goals that we're trying to address? So I want to bring you back. When we first were designing this lesson, one of the things we talked about was entry. So do you think that the lesson was designed for the kids to get some entry?
Oh, absolutely. I thought the way they were discussing the problem, and even, you know, the fact that even if they made the mistake of setting all 3 sides equal to 1/8, eventually they saw that that was not correct. And it wasn't just to do it, they weren't just copying it. I thought, you know, we wanted to see were they going to persevere, and I thought they did.
Any other ideas?
Just in terms of entry, since there was a spot to do an equation, there was a spot also just to, like, I mean, what am I given? I mean, you can write anything for what I'm given. Some of them even just said, I'm given angle R is 3x plus 50. You know, that's so open-ended that there was you could write something down for it if you were stuck. If you didn't know the equation, you didn't know what to conclude, at least you can. Most people, I think, were able to say something. It may not be 100% correct, but something about what they were given. It wasn't like you were stuck.
Asking for a week, you're probably stuck.
Well, so I think I saw 2 things that really helped sort of a bigger picture. One was the sequence. I thought you guys did a really nice job of picking a sequence that developed in a very intentional way. And every kid ran into trouble at some point. Occasionally kids ran into trouble at question 1, but every kid ran into trouble at question 6. They had to think at some point, so that was good. And the other thing a couple of people have mentioned is in a lot of partners, they had entry because they had someone to talk to. Whether that was someone that they could ask questions to, or I was absent, what does this mean? Or it was, hey, you're here, at least I have someone to talk to so I don't feel weird talking aloud by myself. Or I'm having a genuine dialogue. So I thought that partner structure was super significant in giving them entry to something that otherwise, if you said, work on this silently by yourself, and you use all your notes or use your calculator or whatever, I think it would have been very different in terms of how much progress they would have made. And honestly, you could have put them sitting next to someone who was secretly instructed not to say anything, that still would have made a difference compared to just being focused. So I thought that was an important entry facilitator.
And you know what else was good? Like you said, like everyone struggled with number 6, and it was, you know, if you're the one struggling with doing it by yourself, you might be like, why don't I get this? But then when you start hearing, I don't get it. Can you help me out here with number 6? Oh, thank God, it's not just me.
Yeah. I think a lot of them were relieved that it
Yeah.
because it was throughout the whole room there was a vocalness of.
Because my group actually heard like someone in the front going, well wait, I don't know how to do this, and they're like, see, we're not the only ones. So they felt a lot better about it.
And then kind of led kids to want to be able to answer 6 too.
Yeah.
Instead of just giving up, like, all right, nobody's got it, maybe I can be the one
The one to do
Yeah.
that
it.
does get it. So they kept going back to it a little bit
I'm with you.
to try and right, exactly.
There's always
figure it
safety
out.
in numbers, you know,
Yeah.
if I'm not the only one.
That's very true.
Very good. The other thing I wanted to talk about with the task that, and I think, you know, we talked about this, and we talked about what to do before the lesson, okay? And we actually, I remember this conversation, well, do we do the first one together in class?
Right.
I'm really glad we didn't do that.
Yeah, me too.
I'm really glad, because I think our observations would have been a lot different if we would have, you know, said, okay, everybody do number 1, now let's have somebody show what they
Right, because
did.
then they would have just bang done all the rest like
Or they would have tried to do all of them the way the first one
Right.
was. Do you know what I'm saying? So I'm really glad we didn't do an example per se first, but I do think it was important that you did the math talk the day before, because it did give them some ideas of
Look for information.
yeah, looking for information,
That's
you
what-
know.
I'm actually giving this activity right now with the sub, and I didn't do the math talk yesterday, and just like, so I'm kind of interested to see what kind of answers I'm getting. I did look at 5th period just briefly in the break over there, and they were writing, I mean, I wasn't even there, there was a non-math teacher in there, they were writing stuff down.
I think that is a really powerful statement that developing lessons and developing capacity in the classroom with students communicating and their resources to each other, that's something that we designed to really observe how students communicate and feel very comfortable in who's ever present in the room, that mathematics is going to happen and they can communicate about mathematics, and there's more resources than just one individual.
Right,
Yeah.
and more
And I
resources than
said-
just your notes
Yeah,
and,
it's just that,
you know.
Yeah.
And I said for myself, plans were they can work with a partner, they can work with a group if they want, especially because it is more challenging, you know, on their own. So I'm
Interesting
seeing,
to
I'm
learn.
Yeah,
to see what I'm gonna get without even me
Yeah.
being there.
Right. Well, and I think too, we were very thoughtful about this design. I mean, this was not something that we did in 30, 40 minutes and then we were done with it. I mean, if we go back to when we first started planning this lesson, we just did a whole plan. Just what are the boxes going to look like? Like you guys did a brainstorm of some of the problems that you might want to put on here, and that was awesome because we were able to get problems that weren't. Yeah, exactly. But then we also had a real conversation about how do we want to word this. You know, how do we want it to look? How busy do we want it to be on the page? You know, where does the diagram go compared to where do the sentences go? Do we do it this way? Do we do it, you know, do we?
Remember we did the answer key and we realized, oh, we gotta label the triangles.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so that
and
they
then-
have something to
And
give
we
them.
did, actually, we redid, remember number 6, we didn't have it equal to 190, we had it equal to something else.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know who said it equal to 190.
Oh, yes, Jason's going to take credit for it.
Of course.
Well, no, I
It's his evaluation year. Take credit.
said,
Julie
let's pick a bigger number,
Yeah.
because otherwise they get, I was assuming they would know, like, we got to move the sides over here, and I was assuming they're gonna put the stuff on the sides. I'm like, why don't we pick a bigger number just in case the kid puts on angles, and then they would know what's wrong.
I think
That
we
kind
had
of
60.
backfired
We had
on me.
60. I think we had 60 at one point. I think
Yeah.
it was 60, but then I think we ended up wanting to get that 90 at the end. I think that we just we're just brainstorming because technically we thought it was going to be the easiest of the questions we thought going into it, and then we just made that one tweak and it ended up being the hardest question.
Yeah.
you
Which,
know.
again, an important
Yes.
observation
Yes.
to make.
Yeah.
So, but one thing I feel really good about this is that this is a structure of a lesson that we can use for a lot of other lessons. In other words, this might be something you could do right in the beginning of the year when you're doing just given a diagram. You know, here's what I'm given. I see on my diagram. What can I conclude? Even just given 3 points and like here's a diagram. It's a triangle,
It's
or
almost like
you know,
the geometry version of what's in Google.
right. Very similar to a geometry version of.
No, I liked the last three. I thought those were the most fun.
I would like to see more formative assessments or something where they're more open-ended, where we give the kid a sketch, write down as many things as you know about that. It's a triangle, it's a cube, it's equiangular. Go to town and maybe surprise himself by how many things.
Well, that's how I know some of those math talks that
Right.
we do. We have those that just.
Well, maybe start putting that in quizzes. Last question of the quiz. So start writing down everything. You know, you might surprise yourself.
Well, like the one kid, Alejandro said about number 6. Is it a triangle? Maybe it's
Yeah.
a square.
Yeah, he started coming up with he started coming up with
a
an
square?
idea. Yeah,
And it's like, no.
Because he saw it's bigger than 180.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was trying to come up with.
That's interesting.
Outside of the box thinking.
Yeah.
One of the things I thought was cool too was that since Dorothy wasn't really helping him a lot, one of the kids was fine-tuning his question. Because he wasn't getting help, so he was fine-tuning his question. Like, okay, let me ask her if she'll give me a number. Then one kid in the back was like, give me a number.
Oh, no.
You're like 12. We were hoping that it wasn't, you know,
He's
the
like,
number,
"We're
but
like,
we
where
thought
does it go
maybe
here?"
that giving him a number would help him. So he wasn't just saying, I need help.
Yeah.
He was like fine-tuning his question that might lead him to do it.
The idea of help, you know, I had a little quick sidebar with Jill about that. You know, what do students perceive as help? You know, and I know that we went to the session, some of us went to the session on funneling questions versus focus questions through an SUMI.
Questioning.
Yeah, the questioning techniques and a student's perspective of getting help. I mean, I've only gotten help if I've been funneled in the direction of the answer, or you know, am I getting help when I'm asked to refocus on what I'm thinking about? You know, and so how do we build that a little bit more? But I think they did a fantastic job, even though they showed some frustration. You know, they accepted it. I thought, even though they acknowledged this is a little more frustrating, they accepted that they're working through this and they're going to persevere.
And Dorothy's questions were focused
They were
questions.
focus questions,
So,
yeah, but they didn't perceive that as
and
help.
again, as fellow educators and observers, it's good for us to observe questioning like that, because we need to maybe reevaluate how we question.
always wanna
We
funnel,
always
yeah.
want to help them. And that's why I'm just like, you know, I want to help you, like, I want to point right
But
here
you know,
and
sometimes,
focus
like,
you
you know how like when you help a kid, you get overzealous and you just keep working on it till you get the answer. Sometimes they get mad and they're like, well, wait, I just wanted you to give me a But you're like, wait a minute, and then you gotta do this and this, and they're like, I just wanted a little help.
My kids always look up at me and they go, okay, thanks.
Bye.
Leave me alone now.
See you. Okay, all right, so
That's the parenting.
bringing us back to, before I let Sendel go here, I don't think I need to ask this question. What do we learn from planning, facilitating, and observing? I think we've learned a lot about designing a lesson that promotes what we want our students to be able to do. From our, go
I'd
ahead.
like to say something about that because this summer we're coming up on the major overhaul of geometry curriculum.
Right, absolutely.
I think from the comments we've heard kids say, or the questions they've had, we've got to put more decimal answers on our
Absolutely. Yes.
Absolutely.
What's wrong with larger numbers? You have a 190. What's wrong with putting a sign that's 1,900?
Yeah.
Yes.
Why does it have to be 12 or 42 or something like that? Why can't they be something?
And decimals, not just 2.5, but like 1
Yes.
there.
Right.
Yeah.